Hello, my name is Chad Mulvaney, and I'm a consulting director with Forbes Mazars. I'm joined by two of my colleagues, Michael Wolford, a principal, and Tara Anderson, a manager. Both are in our healthcare strategy and finance consulting practice and support clients who are participating in value-based care models. Given we're currently helping over half of the bundled payment for care improvement advanced participants, thought it'd be a good time to connect with Michael and Tara to get their thoughts on what providers should be doing to prepare for the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation's new team model, which starts January 1st of 2026, is mandatory for over 700 hospitals and creates a 30-day episode of care payment for 5 high-volume surgical episodes. Michael, when I think about models like the Medicare Shared Savings Program, there's typically a population health management team with a VP or director of pop health management who's responsible for the ACO's performance. However, with bundles, it's not quite that clear cut. Based on your experience, who is the person within a health system that is typically responsible for bundled payment models?
It's a good question, Chad. Unlike some more mature strategies that have a very commonly known place where they live and rest and are managed in a hospital and health system, bundle payments is still finding its place. We find that either it lives in the ACO director or vice president's area around clinically integrated networks and ACO strategies, or it rolls up to the CFO somewhere in the finance department.
Great. No, thank you, Michael. And, I think one of the things that will become apparent through this conversation is regardless of where it rolls up, it's obviously a team sport. Tara, if you think about what happens next if you've been drafted into team, what do you need to do to prepare for January 1 of 2026?
January 1st, 2026 seems so far away, but it's going to be here before you know it. Healthcare organizations have to start now preparing for this model, doing an assessment of their care coordination efforts, even prior to surgery. What happens with those patients? How do we identify those patients all the way through that 30-day episode after surgery, as well as identifying how are they doing with capturing their risk acuity on their patients. So we're talking HCCs, screening, social determinants of health, the CDI component in the hospital, understanding, what they have, healthcare organizations from a governance to really be able to, think through, where are our opportunities? How do we adjust? And how do we, sustain and success in this model?
I can imagine that there is some natural tendency to want to procrastinate on this. But when you think about the advantages that those who start now will have, because in the out years, the target prices will be based on data from performance years 1 and performance years 2. So if you're not getting ahead of this and your competitors are, you're going to pay for it that much further in the out years. Michael, we've focused a lot on the hospitals that have been mandated to participate, but if you're a post-acute care provider who receives referrals from these facilities, what should you be doing?
Yes, step one is to understand the impacts that team will have on those referral hospitals. It is very clear, it is unambiguous that Medicare is putting the hospitals in the driver's seat with regard to total cost of care. I also need to be super clear that Medicare's freedom to choose their own care will not change in this program. So there will be no narrowing of formal networks, but there will be opportunities for post-acute providers and hospitals to align on their care pathways for patients. The same thing will be true adding surgeons into the mix and primary care providers into the mix. I'm just going to reiterate, for post-acute care providers, understanding what the hospitals are going through is step one, and trying to figure out how you fit into the overall new strategy hospitals are going to pursue is step two.
So it sounds almost like hospitals that the post-acute care facilities receiving referrals from the team participants will also need to do a current state assessment with this full data analysis to kind of understand the volume and where they may have risk and where they may have opportunities.
A current state assessment that is valuable for hospitals is also valuable, spun just a little bit of a different way, for post-acute care providers. Absolutely true.
So if taking the Medicare claims data from the benchmark periods and turning it into a current state assessment is really the linchpin of preparation, what data is CMS going to provide the team hospitals, and when are they going to provide it?
We think it's going to be about November of 2025.
And that data, as you mentioned, that benchmark data, is looking at providing all of your Medicare Part A, Part B claims based on the utilization, that window from the trigger. So that patient's surgery, DRG, inpatient, outpatient procedure, all the way through that 30 days window.
It will provide all detailed beneficiary level claims, but you've got to wait until November of 2025 to get that. On the flip side, waiting until November of 2025 is wasting away 15 of the 17 months that team hospitals have to prepare for this model. And so there are ways, working with firms like Forbes Mazars, to get early access to similar data sets that are equally valid and accurate, that provide benchmarks and accurate target prices, so that organizations can take advantage of this long ramp-up period to 26 without having to wait for November of 25.
If there's one key message, it's understand the data and don't procrastinate in doing it. And the other thing that I would add is, while CMS will provide the detailed claims data to the hospitals that have been selected, the post-acute partners that receive referrals will not get this data. So they're completely flying blind.
That's an important call out, because so many of the hospitals that we work with, or even the post-acute providers that we work with, the post-acute providers already have a hard enough time getting data, and accurate, informed data. So that's another important reminder of why it's so important, so critical that the hospitals are going to work with their post-acute providers in sharing this data and coming up with some joint strategies.
What are typical activities that participants in bundled payment models like TEAM need to undertake?
Step one, even before you understand the data, is to convene that team, whether it's ACO driven, finance department driven, or a lot of folks coming together to understand the data. Then you understand where your historical data suggests you have opportunities to improve, or where you're already succeeding. Then it becomes a choose your own adventure type activity where organizations will pursue different task forces and different strategies to pursue a whole variety of opportunities. Some of the most common that we see are around physician alignment, post-acute alignment, standardization of post-discharge care, enhancing care coordination, and lastly, maintaining basic compliance with model requirements. We've said often that organizations can't simply participate in TEAM passively. There needs to be active activity around compliance with and success in TEAM. And so that starts day one after you understand where you stand today.
When you think about the clients that you've worked with over the years, Tara, what's one lesson that you've learned that you would like to share with the hospitals that have been selected into TEAM?
I think we've really already been stressing that, they can't wait, right? We can't wait until that, that November, December 2025 mark. Organizations that have been successful have gone in with that mindset, is that we know we have opportunity, right? So how do we prioritize what that opportunity is? And they've had the mindset of, we can't stay status quo. So in order for us to be successful, we have to understand where our opportunities are, why, and then formulate our plan around that, but really holding ourselves accountable to meeting on a regular basis, analyzing, looking at the data that we have in regards to our current performance, and then making those adjustments based on how we're performing.
And Michael, same question to you.
It's a really good question because what Chad, you mentioned at the beginning, a lot of episode of care participating hospitals today have done so under voluntary BPCI or BPCI advanced models, which offers hospitals selection bias to participate only where they're succeeding and opt out where they're not. And the truth is, this model is the exact opposite of that, where you're in come 1/1/26, like it or not. And so the big lesson learned here is to jump in quickly, to jump in with some specific strategies, and to create some pretty tangible, accountable, and actionable goals for changing utilization and improving patient care in the ways that matter in team. I believe in my gut that every hospital and every physician out there is doing their best every day to take care of Americans that need care. Continuing to practice medicine in a way that is less efficient will have adverse consequences.
I think that's both of you really like the answers and think it's a great call out because at the end of the day, this is all about improving the outcome for the patient. And that's what we're driving towards. Well, appreciate both of your time. Certainly been an insightful conversation and hope it helps folks that have been mandated into team to think about how they can prepare and succeed in the model.